This GeekWire podcast is brought to you by BECU. Stay tuned to the break as Brian Westbrook interviews BECU's Stacy Black for today's Money Hack, answering your most pressing financial questions, including how to track recurring subscriptions. For more money hacks, check out geekwire.com/BECU. Last week on the show, we had Colin Sebastian, who's an equity analyst from Baird. One of the examples that was listed this week in the press release for your group was Yahoo Finance is building an AI-powered news summarization solution dedicated to analyzing breaking news, processing financial data, and interpreting SEC filings. So you're putting both Colin and me out of work.
No, absolutely
Okay.
not. It'll be Todd and Colin human in the loop as we go.
Okay.
They'll be your virtual assistants.
Hi, everybody. It's GeekWire co-founder Todd Bishop. For this week's episode, I went to the Amazon headquarters in Seattle to talk with Francessca Vasquez, a vice president at Amazon Web Services, who leads the company's work with enterprise customers through the AWS Professional Services Group and the AWS Generative AI Innovation Center. We talk about what she's seeing across industries as companies work with generative AI and a new wave of AI agents. We discuss some of the news out of the AWS Summit New York City related to all of these trends this week as well. A quick aside, on the news front this week, we also saw a continued reshaping of the tech workforce on two ends of the spectrum. Meta hired a Seattle startup co-founder for its superintelligence team, and AWS itself made a round of layoffs. We recorded this episode prior to that news emerging. I will link to those stories from the show notes. Here's my conversation with Francessca Vasquez of the AWS Professional Services Group and Generative AI Innovation Center. Francessca, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Todd. It's great to be here.
I know you're a computer scientist by training, and you're involved obviously in the business side and in larger executive leadership now, but what's your perspective on what you've seen over the past 2 years? I mean, if you could go back and tell yourself when you were graduating with a computer science degree, like, this is what it's going to be like, what would you have told that person?
Yeah, well, Todd, we won't go that far back because I don't want
Come
people
on.
to know that I might have started on the mainframe in VAX, although that still exists today.
I don't believe it. Anyway, go ahead. Keep going.
But I will just tell you, there's been some, what I'll just consider to be like amazing, both inflection and tipping points in just the history of computing. One you might just chuckle on, but I have to tell you because I spent a good portion of my career working for the Department of Defense. So you think about just standard communication, right? You probably remember DARPANET and just
Sure.
and people thought, are folks really going to communicate through message to message?
Yeah.
They are. Now that's, by the way, that's like common email, and we all are just like, you can't live without it. Back then, that was a major inflection point. Then you sort of move through the entire services-oriented architectures and then to the internet, which became, obviously, as we know it today. Most people don't even think about sort of the internet or what used to be utility and grid computing. It just kind of happens. And so I think the next iteration of that then has become the cloud, which we know a little something about with Andy Jassy's leadership and kind of helping to revolutionize the cloud. And now I think we're like in that next life cycle of what is evolving from AI and machine learning to generative AI to agentic AI, to probably beyond that, what will be like physical AI and more. So I think the difference, the pace of innovation right now for generative to agentic, just where we are, it's just a lot faster than what I've ever seen in my career. So I couldn't tell you what are things going to look like in 12 to 18 months. That's how fast things are moving.
I thought it might be good to have you start by explaining what the Generative AI Innovation Center is at Amazon, because it's been around for a couple years, but a lot of folks out there may not know what it is.
That's right. That's right. Well, maybe I can start by just saying that this week we're going to be announcing our 2-year anniversary of the Gen AI Innovation Center. And how we got here is, Todd, Amazon, AWS has been in the AI and machine learning space for over 25 years. And our whole premise has been, how do we continue to help democratize AI? When we started seeing this inflection point about 2 years ago around machine learning, then organizations really starting to move into generative AI, and now you even see agentic, one of the first things that we heard from customers was, how do I take this from just being like a hype cycle and making it very real in my environment where I'm running regulated system or a mission critical system, or I don't have hundreds of thousands of data scientists, across my organization. So we came up in true fashion at AWS with this startup. We took, and it started out very scrappy, by the way. That's a tenet here. Just start scrappy like a startup and get going. We identified a good portion of our existing AI and machine learning experts that were across the company that had already been building proof of concepts with customers. We rapidly cross-train them, just like any customer would. And then we put together a mechanism to go out and work with some of our top customers on helping them to establish industry-specific use cases that we could quickly take from prototype to POC to production in the course of anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks, give or take. And that's honestly how we got started. And so it's taken us 2 years. We have a lot of learnings, by the way, but it's been great to see organizations like Jabil and United Airlines and PGA Tour really be able to bring their AI and now generative AI use cases to sort of real world value. And so I'm excited about that. And we're just getting started, by the way.
And I know obviously you're looking ahead to things like agents. And
yes.
That seems to be a big focus of this announcement that was made this past week, where there's an additional $100 million that's being invested by Amazon in this Gen AI Innovation Center. When you look at what's next and how to deploy that additional funding, like, what are the priorities? Where do you see things headed from here? And I'm thinking of this not only for Amazon, but kind of as a proxy for other folks out there as they're thinking about how to prioritize their limited budgets. Like, where are you headed?
Yeah, it's a great question. So first off, I'd like to think we were early in thinking about this, by the way. I think you're going to continue to see a lot of organizations really amplify and ramp up on what they'll call, AI consulting. I think you're just going to see that. The reason we have the Generative AI Innovation Center as part of our professional services business is because the only way you get to value is by actually putting things into production and having production success. So if you think about like the tipping point that we've seen for AI, obviously the models have gotten really good. We've been able to introduce new capability around human reasoning, and we just see that being an area that organizations are going to want to invest in far more. And so for us, our professional services business is hugely like people oriented, and we see real value on being able to do more with the advent of agents. In terms of the investment for the Innovation Center, we kind of see it in 3 buckets. First of all, I think our customers have really benefited from just having our deep forward-leaning engineering strategists and data scientists, kind of that persona, all in one, sitting with their builders side by side. So we like to do a lot of just forward deployment, putting our people that are deeply intimate in this. I don't see too many customers that are out trying to develop their own foundation models for AI. Many of them are using the foundation model providers that are there. They're leveraging Bedrock. And so there's real value in having these experts come in and help you customize the models, fine-tuning, et cetera. So we see that being like one big investment area. The other area that we're excited about is we want to give our customers a show me an experience. We launched as part of the Gen AI Innovation Center in our second headquarters location in Arlington, Virginia, an experience center. It's a pop-up that they can come in and they can, if they're just exploring, like, how do I make sense of Gen AI? What are agents? How do I use agents? We have an entire like pop-up experience center that changes, every month.
Did you call that a show me?
Yeah, it's a show me.
Is that like an Amazon phrase? I've never heard that.
No, that's just my phrase.
Oh,
we want to be able to show the art of the possible versus just talk about it. So I'm very excited about that. And so we're going to continue to make part of our investment will go into the experience center that's there. And then the third thing that we're working on is We have a very big partner ecosystem as well. And so the other great thing that we see these investments going to is how do we amplify this very large partner ecosystem of technology partners and systems integrators, and they're all, working side by side with us in the Innovation Center.
A lot going on.
Yeah.
It seems like the more that AI opens doors,
Yes.
the more possibilities are created, and it sort of can be overwhelming at times.
You said the right word, by the way. It's the possibilities.
Okay.
And that's
not the overwhelming.
Yeah, not the overwhelming. It's the possibilities, because I think that is what's going to help a lot of these companies unlock their value. And I do think more than just agents, I think agentic AI systems, like the end-to-end, that is going to be so pervasive. Back to that core mental model, democratize. It's going to really, I think, help many companies, and we just see it. I think we're just seeing the pattern sooner.
All right, so I want to talk about some examples. Let's do that when we come back. You're listening to GeekWire, and we will be right back.
I'm Brian Westbrook with GeekWire Studios. On this episode of Money Hacks presented by BECU, we chat with Stacy Black, BECU lead financial educator, and answer your financial questions. Stacy, one of the questions that came up is managing miscellaneous expenses. You have a tip specifically for streaming services.
I go through and list all my subscriptions, streaming services. I take a look at my bank account and see what's coming out and make sure I remember everything, or my credit card statement, and list them all out and the amounts. Then you want to evaluate what you're really using. I'm not using all of the streaming services. And in fact, I forgot about one that I signed up for, right? So this is going to give us a clear accounting of what we have and what we're using.
This is a great idea to save money on those miscellaneous expenses. We'll also talk about living paycheck to paycheck, how to buy a home, and whether your financial plan is working for you. Take a look at all of the episodes of Money Hacks at geekwire.com/BECU.
Find more information at becu.org. Well, let's talk about some examples to make this tangible.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting things in the announcement that came out earlier this week about the new $100 million in funding, there were some really interesting case studies.
Yes.
There were a couple that resonated with me. And so I wanted to let you know just off the bat, last week on the show, we had Colin Sebastian, who's an equity analyst from Baird. He actually covers Amazon, and you'll hear him on the Amazon earnings call. So we actually had him in to sort of an earnings preview, and we talked a little bit too about how AI is impacting financial services and this whole notion of assessing companies. And so one of the examples that was listed this week in the press release for your group was Yahoo Finance is building an AI-powered news summarization solution, like a multi-agent system where a supervisor agent will intelligently orchestrate specialized agents dedicated to analyzing breaking news, processing financial data, and interpreting SEC filings. So you're putting both Colin and me out of work.
No, absolutely
Okay.
not. It'll be Todd and Colin human in the loop as we go.
Okay.
They'll be your virtual assistants.
That's actually a really good. Do you want to build it? Yeah. So that is the idea. I'm sure they're not replacing
That's right.
analysts. They're augmenting their abilities.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And by the way, Yahoo Finance, we've seen others really driving transformation, like on the exchanges, like NASDAQ is another great customer that we've had an opportunity to work with. I always tease the teams. I sometimes talk a lot about our sports customers because many people can sort of relate to the diversity in sort of the sports and a lot of our media and entertainment. We ourselves at Amazon are also transforming, by the way. We've built about 1,000+ different applications. So yeah, and that's the exciting part. There's not a single industry that is going to own sort of this space. There is value for every single industry. And that's what I really like about the direction of where we're headed, where the technology is moving and heading across the board.
Another one that resonated with me, you mentioned sports, and I know the PGA Tour is using some of the technologies that were developed through your group and implemented through your group to pick photos.
Yes.
This really resonated with me. I want this.
We can make that happen.
Okay.
So let me tell you, the PGA Tour, you don't have to be a big golfer to love some of these use cases, okay? So one of the great things about the PGA Tour is that they have, over the years, been looking to really expand their fan base. And as you can imagine, the fan base globally and demographic, just everything. And one of the things that they've been trying to solve for is, we help them build a system called, Every Shot Live, where it's a platform running on AWS, and they can pretty much capture all this data, 4 million data points a day on AWS for all the shots, okay? However, one of the areas that they wanted to really differentiate that has never been done is they wanted to use generative AI and agents to be able to do more real-time and proactive commentary for fans, various players. So imagine that. I may not know a lot about the sport, but I'm just getting engaged. But I now have this multimodal agent that can support real-time commentary as a player is getting ready to make the shot and then give post commentary, and then hopefully over time take it even further by then having it translated and presented in a number of different languages and dialect. I mean, these are some pretty gnarly problem sets to solve. And this is how they're thinking about where the technology can go.
And so this would be direct to the fan. This is not in the color analyst's
this
on
could
the
be
TV.
Direct to the fan, right on their digital mobile app or on web, but through all their different channels. Yeah, and so just think about that level of engagement. It's very different. It uses a lot of different capabilities, leverages one of our first party models known as Nova. And so, so PGA, and we won't talk about golf handicap here. We'll save that for another time. Mine's not that great, but I love the fact that they are really this really high data oriented organization that's just transformed the whole fan experience. We can go on. Formula One's another one.
But I just want to point out, obviously, that agent has to whisper, right? That's like a golf whisper.
That is a golf whisper.
No, sorry, bad joke. All right. Okay. So yes, F1, Formula One.
Yeah, Formula One, also another great customer and partner. Again, international organization. They have a number of different races. Their problem set is very different. One of the things that they've been leveraging agentic AI for is on race day, a number of things can kind of go wrong as they think about the physical car, the track, everything. They have this new application known as Root Cause Analyzer that they've developed that has allowed them to basically take down from what would have been a number of weeks to just troubleshoot various things that happened during Formula One to basically hours and minutes. And so I had the pleasure of being able to go see Chris Roberts, who leads all of F1's technology in London not long ago, and just kind of preview how far they've come. And it's amazing. We leave the meeting and I said, Chris, not only is this going to be great for fans, but think about how much faster you're going to be able to ramp your talent and staff. Because now you've got all of this. The agents provide a lot of proactive summarization and communication and troubleshooting as they're looking at these vast data sources. And so it really becomes highly productive for newer employees in their company with existing employees, and that knowledge transfer. So there's all these other amazing unintended benefits that I think are going to be great.
Are there any other customer case studies recently that you can talk about that just light you up and say, okay, this is an example of what the future is going to be? I just saw it. Yeah.
Well, can we talk manufacturing?
Sure, please.
Jabil. I'm a big fan of Jabil. Jabil stated, they told us one day, we want to be the first digital native manufacturing company in the world. And like many companies, we got to figure out how to get started. We're global. Anyway, long story short, Jabil said that they wanted to build an entirely new shop floor assistant that supported over 1,000 different processes that they had, 14,000 employees. And could we get this done in a matter of months? We said, okay, it's an interesting problem statement. I'll cut to the chase. It was a matter of weeks, not months, weeks, leveraging Q and some of our intelligent assistants, and they were up and running with their new both Gen AI application and their first pass at an agent that they could get started with, parsing through years and years of knowledge bases that they could bring more value to their shop floor experience. That's a manufacturer, global manufacturer. It's just the beginning.
There was a stat that struck me in the announcement of the new funding for the Generative AI Center.
Oh, yeah.
It was a Gartner stat, and that was the projection that 15% of work decisions could be made autonomously by agentic AI by 2028. So 15% of work decisions. Like, I was just wrapping my head around that. And then I went and I looked at the actual press release. Do you know what I'm going to say now?
Yeah, I think I do.
Yes, because the headline on the press release was that Gartner warned that more than 40% of agentic AI projects could be canceled by the end of 2027. They cited high costs and unclear return on investment or a lack of risk controls. And so you've got these two realities that you have to hold in your head at the same time. How do you reconcile those two things? And how do you adjust to those risks when you're working with customers?
Yeah. So we get a chance to look at a lot of, analysts' data. We also survey all of our engagements, and we've supported over 1,000 engagements. Let me try to balance it with what we see.
Yeah.
If you just look at some of the analyst reports today about last year, 2024, 72% of the organizations that we tend to work with already had one or more Gen AI use cases, like in production, okay? That's kind of one, just looking at like the market penetration of pure Gen AI. Second bucket, the bucket that I love in terms of what we do and why I think agentic will also take off. Industry analysts also say that many of these same companies a year ago that were doing experiments or proof of concepts, only about 30% of them actually got into production. A lot of the work that we do, we've been able to increase that well over 50%. And of course, I like a good stretch goal. So we're trying to work on getting 80% of our customer POCs into production here in 2025.
So of the things that are proof of concepts that you're working with on customers, you're trying to get 80% of them actually into production.
That's right. And we're about 58% today, and the industry average is about 30. So there's a rubric to this. And then the last area is sort of what we see. What are the specific strategies that people are taking to make things more actionable? And so while I've seen that same stat for Gartner, I do think that the companies that we work with, what has made them so successful, they've got very good leadership commitment. They're putting like the right AI, can I call them AI officers in place to make sure it happens. They're developing robust business cases. And that is like the key to me on where you're going to see agents and agentic systems work and not work. You have to be able to have a very good business case. And one of the things we do in the Innovation Center is we really try to have a rubric that looks at what's the business outcome and value that you want to achieve. Do we have the right data, foundation established? How do we bring in the right talent, both within the company and then what we hopefully can cross-train on? Have we looked at the right choices relative to model, cost, performance, and things like that? And so I do think and then are we looking at the right business processes that we think can drive a lot of value, whether that be internal use cases, by the way, or external? The external use cases, we see a lot that when you have any customer-facing applications or contact centers, we see a lot of great momentum happening with all industries, by the way. So I don't know. I think we're going to see way more than 15% over the next couple of years.
So you think even that first is underestimated?
I think some of our signals, because the pace of this innovation is happening so fast. I mean, even this week with our launches around what developers are going to be able to do to leverage our platform for Bedrock and Genesis. Yeah, I think democratizing and moving faster for sure.
It's interesting because on the one hand, you've got this vibe coding trend and the whole notion of, part of the momentum behind this stuff is average people, non-developers, can sit down over the course of a weekend and come up with a real working prototype.
Yes.
Or at least a proof of concept.
Yes.
And what you're saying is, okay, that's nice. And you also need a legitimate business case. You need to have some traditional ideas around this and make sure that it's adding to value long term.
I think enterprises...
That's such a bummer.
Yeah, it's a total bummer. But I think enterprises are going to really be able to show their innovation here. I do.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
So of the companies that you work with in the Generative AI Innovation Center, what are the key ingredients for success? I know data, and I know this. I asked this question. I'm kind of setting you up here because I know that part of the answer is like make sure you have a strong cloud and you've got your data in order, which really play into the AWS sales pitch. And I don't want to go into that necessarily, but I'm just curious. Like, are there key things that companies do to set themselves up for success in generative AI and agentic AI?
Yeah, I believe so. And let me just say, in our work over the last 2 years through the Innovation Center, first off, I can't think of a single industry that we haven't touched. So the one thing I would ground, the discussion on is that we're seeing this trend, this transformation happen across every imaginable industry. And if you had asked me 24 months ago, did I think one industry would really just be leading in adoption? I probably would have said, yeah, just look at all of your digital native, companies that we often running. And I would have been wrong. We find that financial services, highly regulated, but lots of data. We've seen a lot of innovation happening in financial services. We've seen a lot happening in manufacturing and healthcare. So there also isn't one industry over the other that is, moving at a different pace. All of them. And I've been most surprised by financial services. I think beyond ensuring that these companies are already starting in the cloud and data, I think there's some other just basic cultural pieces that are allowing these companies to move. One I mentioned earlier in the discussion is I do think these things still require having very good leadership conviction. And so I've found the companies that may be progressing further, they've got a great executive leadership team who believes in the direction of just the pace of technology, and or they've got they have a board, far more senior technical thought leaders on their board. And that makes a very big difference. And that's globally, by the way. I've seen this trend kind of globally. So that's sort of one. I think the second also is these companies are also thinking about how they want to reimagine elements of their business processes. So if you look across the board, horizontal capability, many organizations have contact centers, customer experience centers, whether you're in banking or you're in the airlines, doesn't matter. You have some way of engaging with your customers. Many of these same companies get measured on things like Net Promoter Score, and they want to be able to improve that. Their customer base or client base may be evolving or changing. They want to do more with digital. And so you see them really pinpointing very specific business processes that they want to really drive. And they see the evolution of AI being a great way. So I see that also in the rubric. And then I think for some of these organizations, how they think about their culture and their people, that becomes a huge differentiator for both talent development and attraction beyond ensuring that they've got the right cloud control, security, data, all those things, by the way, matter. You need that too. And then all of the other, what I consider non-technical pieces, leadership convention, good culture, workforce, oh man, all those things come into play. And so I think the other great thing that our team has learned is that it's more than just the technology of models and latency and tokens. It's also about the people and the culture and what experiences you want, your new process or what you're reimagining to have. And that's been great.
We alluded to this earlier, but you do have this whole vibe coding trend. And one of the announcements, not in your group, but one of the announcements that came out of AWS was this new tool called Kiro.
Yes.
Kiro. And this notion of applying documentation and structure to these otherwise somewhat informal processes that people might do over the course of a weekend. Are you able to take a vibe coding project that some engineer at one of these financial services firms might have done over the weekend and ingest it into the Generative AI Innovation Center and make it something more legit?
Yes. So this is next generation IDE. I get very excited about this. And short answer is yes. And not even just the Generative AI Innovation Center, professional services, our solution architects, everyone should be able to leverage Kiro. I expect that any organization that's offering consulting, service delivery, they will all have to have some level of generative AI, agentic AI agents in their workflows. All of them. Every last one of them. I'd like us to be moving faster. Like we want to be customer zero, but I expect the industry, every single one of these companies will.
We're running out of time here, but I want to take a quick break. Okay. And when we come back, I have some bigger picture questions related in part to some of your volunteer work. So we'll do that when we come back.
Sounds good.
You're listening to GeekWire, and we will be right back. You also are involved in some volunteer work, and one of the groups that you work with is Rainier Scholars. Yes. For folks who aren't familiar with Rainier Scholars, can you explain what it is?
Yeah, so Rainier Scholars is basically a nonprofit organization here based out of Seattle, and they're focused on basically a 12-year curriculum to help underserved communities on the importance of education across many disciplines. I actually got involved with Rainier Scholars when I first moved to Seattle as a way to figure out how to give back to the community. I'm a STEM graduate. I graduated with a degree in computer science, and I was deeply influenced by a number of mentors who just kept me excited in this space. And so Rainier has this amazing academic rigor to really prepare the next generation. And one of the great successes is these students, their pathway through high school, getting a chance to see them at the end of the year as they complete their program and get to their senior year. And then all of them selecting which colleges and universities they're going to go to. Sometimes our team will pack college kits for them. If you could imagine, boy, things get really expensive. But we pack a lot of great college kits for them. And it's just amazing. These are the leaders, I think, of the future. And because we've been talking about AI, of course, yes. I have to get in an AI.
Yes.
Their world will be very different than how, you or I started. And so they're already building and developing with this notion of AI already today in a lot of the user applications that they have, whether that be Perplexity or ChatGPT or Q, whatever the case may be. They're already developing that way. So I just think it's going to be great.
This is why I wanted to bring it up. It's so interesting. And first off, I've been to a Rainier Scholars luncheon. It's hard not to be inspired.
Yes.
Because these are kids who are going to college.
Yes.
And as you said, it's a 12-year program, who might not otherwise be going to college, and they should be going to college.
That's right.
But it's such an interesting moment in time right now. And on the one hand, you're on the cutting edge, on the front lines, seeing how these things are being implemented. And then I'm sure when some of these kids talk to you or you interact with some of the kids from Rainier Scholars, it can also be pretty scary because some of the opportunities aren't there that might have otherwise been there. Companies might say, hey, that internship program, I may not need as many interns this year. How do you square that? And where do you think that's headed? And what would be your advice or input to somebody in the Rainier Scholars program who might ask you this kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, the good news is we're still very much investing in untapped talent, inclusive of, our intern programs here. And so from my perspective, I think these are the minds of the future, and we want their new ways of thinking about, some of these processes. We talked about the art of the possible. And so we want to still invest. We have a number of programs still across Amazon and AWS that support a lot of our career pathways through universities and untapped, through military programs, et cetera, that we still invest in. Even in our innovation center, by the way, we have a number of what we call associate to consultants that come in through our innovation center. And what they learn, by the way, is they're very good with technology, but what they learn is how to interface and interact with customers, also balancing out their technical skills with very good soft skills on how to still present work. There's no agent for going yet to go see the customer yet. That doesn't exist. And so that is still important, and customers still like the human touch for where it's applicable in what we do. And so we still think that there's a ton of value, and they've got a lot of great ideas. We put out a hackathon. Can I just share this story with you, Todd? We put out a hackathon very recently to encourage folks to just use their imagination, take QCLI, command line interface tool, and build, our Q command line interface tool and build something. And I don't know, we probably had 1,500 different submissions. I am very proud to say that two of the builders from our GenAI organization developed one was a data generator, which was amazing that we can go and launch with customers in production. The other one was a very rapid statement of work creator, where when customers say they need our help, now we've got this great new application and tool that we can leverage. And that was all done through Hackathon for a lot of our untapped talent. So I think we have to continue investing here.
If somebody graduated from high school or graduating from college were to ask you, like, what's the most important thing they could focus on at a high level, the kinds of principles they should keep in mind as they're thinking about entering the job market, what would you tell them?
Oh, man, I would tell them stay focused on the team. A lot of what you'll do later in life always involves the team. I would tell them to never lose focus on things like thinking really big and differently and taking some risk, I think that's where companies are looking for people to help take risk. And then I would encourage them to someone told me this. I would encourage them, apply for everything that you don't think you're qualified for and go for it.
Nice. And then in the same vein, maybe we could wrap up by getting your advice for the companies out there, maybe some of the companies that haven't started to really embrace AI.
Yeah.
Is there a place that you would start if you were a business leader just trying to get your team on board with some of these concepts?
Yeah.
Generative AI, let alone agents.
Yeah. I think knowledge is still power. And I think for companies that are still unsure or on the fence, I think that they need to bring in experts from either the technology companies or thought leaders across academia to just come in. We often help a number of companies prepare presentations for their board. We bring in a lot of thought leaders. I think you have to start there. And then the other thing that sometimes people need, they just need to see the actual art of the possible. And so one of the customers that I work with, as they were getting ready to prepare for an upcoming board meeting, and they thought that they were going to have to spend weeks and weeks of doing just content creation, I think in a matter of a day, we had drafted for them, here's a starting point, all powered by a Gen AI capability to help them with content to go speak at the right executive levels. They just have to put your hands on the tech and get going. Don't wait. That's how companies get disrupted. And so you want to lean into it. It's a big external trend. There's a lot of proof points already of companies getting value. And so that's what I would encourage them to do.
Francessca Vasquez, thank you very much.
Thank you, Todd. It's so great to be here with you today.
It was fun to sit down with you. I will link from the show notes to the Amazon Gen AI Innovation Center website and to some of the announcements this week for more information on everything that we talked about. Thanks for listening, everybody. Curt Milton edited this episode. I'm GeekWire co-founder Todd Bishop. We'll be back next week with a new episode of the GeekWire podcast.